Do you think we'll need extra security for Chimaev versus Strickland? Absolutely. I got to be honest. I don't know if I trust those two enough to put them together before the fight, because I think they might start fighting. They seem to hate each other and despise each other. And those things are what fights are built on. Those are the things that fights are built on, is bad blood, heat, a true dislike for someone. Sean don't necessarily like anybody, which makes him as fun as anyone to watch. But Khamzat just wants to smash people. Smash. Beat them up, take them down, overwhelm them to the point that they can't do anything. That might be a tougher fight for Khamzat than I may have imagined. When Sean Strickland goes into Houston to take on Fluffy Hernandez, not only does he win the fight, he's saying things that are so crazy and out there that everybody's paying attention.
Chimaev's a bully. I made him quit training.
He says some wild stuff, and then Khamzat starts to reply. Watching him against Fluffy, Sean looks so good. If that version showed up, that might be a tougher fight for Khamzat than I may have imagined. We're going to need some extra security for this fight.
So this time around,
there's only a few real A's, and like Khamzat is a real A.
He's a savage.
I talked to DC about him, and DC said, dude, when that guy grabbed me, I realized I'm gonna have to wrestle to keep this guy off me. He's strong, man.
Yeah.
How the did that guy make 170?
I don't know, but I don't understand how he talks about going up to 205, because like you said, you got guys like Pereira, and don't get me wrong, I know they're stylistically different, but
I think he could do it. The kind of guy like Khamzat, like, man, you gotta be an Olympic caliber wrestler to scrap with that guy. The thing about his grappling is if you have that hole, he's gonna find that hole and he's gonna smother you.
For sure.
But I guess they are taking into consideration the fact that Sean Strickland has a win over Nasty Namavov. You know, a lot of people were trashing Sean Strickland about his fighting ability before the Anthony Hernandez fight, including Nasty Namavov as well. He was trashing Strickland, saying this guy's complete trash, this guy's garbage. And I even put a tweet out saying, this guy beat you on a week's notice. You know, Strickland has some solid wins, and they're definitely coming into play here. Plus, the fact that these two are probably going to have one of the best pre-fight press conferences in recent UFC history is also definitely coming into play here. I would not be surprised if Paramount has a pair of scissors on the cord to Sean Strickland's microphone at this press conference, because I know for a fact he is going to go absolutely crazy at Khamzat Chimaev. He's been saying so much about him. Terrorist this, terrorist that. He's going to... Sure, the press conference may be better than the fight.
Strickland by round 5 TKO, bro. You know, the classic fucking UFC 308 when Chimaev was fighting Whitaker. The amount of people I saw. Dude, Bobby Knuckles by fucking round 5 TKO, dude. Dude, Bobby Knuckles is going to survive 4 rounds of Khamzat Chimaev and then TKO him in the 5th round. And they genuinely think Khamzat Chimaev is like Guram, dude. They talk about Khamzat's cardio like he's fucking Jose Medina, dude. I don't think he's going to drastically gas out fighting Sean Strickland. That's one reason why I'm picking him, despite the fact that I think Sean Strickland can get back up from the takedowns. He can.
This fight has moved past the rumor stage and into reality. The UFC has made it official, and now the middleweight division has a matchup that immediately changes the conversation. Sean Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev are now set to collide, and the reason fans reacted so fast is not hard to figure out. These are not two fighters who win in the same way, build momentum in the same way, or force opponents to deal with the same kind of pressure. They're strengths come from different places, their rhythm is different, and the moment their names were attached to one another, people across MMA started breaking the fight apart from every angle. Sean Strickland brings a style that looks simple until someone has to deal with it for real. He moves forward, stays disciplined, keeps that jab working, and makes opponents fight at a pace that can wear on them minute after minute. He does not need wild movement or dramatic bursts to get the job done. He keeps things tight, controlled, and uncomfortable. And over time, that steady pressure can force mistakes out of people who start the fight feeling confident. Once he gets into rhythm, the rounds can start slipping away from the other side before they even realize it. Khamzat Chimaev is a very different kind of problem, and that is what makes this matchup so interesting from the start. His style is built around pressure too, but his pressure does not come from boxing volume and forward movement on the feet alone. He wants contact, he wants control, and he wants the fight to become physical as quickly as possible. The second he closes the distance and gets his hands on someone, the danger changes. A clean striking exchange can suddenly become a wrestling exchange, and from there, it can turn into a draining battle that leaves opponents carrying his weight, fighting grip, defending positions, and trying to stop the fight from becoming his kind of contest. That split in styles is exactly why this fight has become so easy to talk about and so hard to call. One version of the matchup plays out with Strickland finding his timing, setting the pace, landing the jab, and making Chimaev work through a long striking battle that never quite turns into the kind of grappling fight he wants. Another version looks completely different, with Chimaev closing distance early, forcing tie-up, putting Strickland on the defensive, and dragging the fight into the kind of exhausting exchanges that have broken down so many opponents before. Both outcomes feel possible, and that uncertainty is what has made this fight explode as a major talking point. There is something even bigger sitting under all of this, and that is the question people always care about in fights like this. When elite stand-up pressure meets elite wrestling pressure, which one ends up shaping the fight? That is the real heart of this matchup. Strickland wants space, time, and enough room to build his kind of fight. Chimaev wants to erase that space, cut off that time, and force a completely different kind of battle. Neither answer feels automatic, and that is why predictions are already coming from all directions. Fans are not reacting this strongly just because the names are big. So they are reacting because the strengths line up in a way that creates real tension. Strickland is at his best when he can stay upright, stay calm, and slowly push a fight in his direction with pressure and clean boxing. Chimaev is at his best when he turns that calm into chaos, gets close, makes the fight physical, and starts forcing exchanges that take opponents out of their comfort zone. Those worlds are on a collision course now, and that is why so many people in the fight world are already locked in on what happens next. The closer this fight gets, the more the debate is going to build. One side sees Strickland's pressure, toughness, and disciplined stand-up as the exact kind of style that can frustrate someone trying to crash in and control him. The other side sees Chimaev's strength, wrestling, and non-stop forward push as the kind of threat that can wipe out a striking plan before it ever settles in. That tension is real, and it is the reason this matchup already feels bigger than a normal announcement. What makes it even better is that the answer is probably not going to come from one flashy moment alone. This fight could be shaped by dozens of smaller battles inside the bigger one. Every jab matters. Every level change matters. Every clinch exchange matters. Every time Strickland tries to keep range, and every time Chimaev tries to break it, the direction of the fight can start shifting. That kind of layered matchup is exactly why analysts and fans keep coming back to it. This is the kind of fight that gives people a strong opinion fast, because both sides have a clear path to winning. So Strickland can make it a long stand-up battle and drag Chimaev into a pace that tests his gas tank and patience. Chimaev can force wrestling, turn the fight into a physical grind, and make Strickland spend the night defending instead of building offense. One fighter wants clean structure, the other wants force and pressure in tight spaces. That clash is what makes this so hard to predict and so easy to care about.
That could be a problem, but realistically, do I think that Sean Strickland can stuff takedown after takedown and chain wrestle and stuff? I don't know. And if I was going to be honest, no, I don't think so. I think that Khamzat could do, maybe not exactly what he did to DDP, but he can eventually, if he, plays this smart and does the safe route, he can absolutely win this fight by like ground and pound decision, or not really ground and pound, but like top control, very light ground and pound decision. Or he could submit Sean Strickland. I could easily see him getting to the back and, with that freakish level strength he has and the squeeze, that could be part of it as well. So yeah, I am so in for this event though. That's so sick. May 9th, Strickland and Khamzat Chimaev. He's on the feet for a very, very long time. I can see Strickland. If it is on the ground for long periods or even early, I'm saying Chimaev probably washes him. But I mean, you see, as of right now,
Michael Bisping looked at this matchup and saw a very serious test in front of Sean Strickland. He gave Strickland full respect for earning the opportunity, and he made it clear that this was not a case of someone just getting handed a big fight without doing the work first. From Bisping's point of view, Strickland showed exactly why he belongs in this position, especially in the way he handled Fluffy Hernandez. That performance mattered because it was not just a win on paper. Strickland pushed the action, controlled long stretches of the fight, and closed the show with a body shot finish that reminded people how sharp and effective he can be when the fight is taking place on his turn. That result stood out to Bisping because it showed the best parts of Strickland's style in a very clear way. He did not look rushed, he did not look lost, and he did not allow the fight to drift out of his control for long. He applied pressure, stayed composed, and kept making the right reads until the finish came. In Bisping's view, that kind of performance is exactly how a fighter proves he deserves a major opportunity. It was clean, it was disciplined, and it showed that Strickland is still a very dangerous man when he gets to fight the kind of fight he wants. At the same time, Bisping made a sharp distinction between beating a tough opponent and preparing for someone like Khamzat Chimaev. In his eyes, Chimaev brings a level of physical danger that changes the whole conversation. He is not just another difficult matchup with a few clear strengths. He is an unbeaten fighter who can take over exchanges in ways that leave opponents stuck reacting instead of choosing their own shot. Bisping's main point was that Chimaev does not just win rounds by doing slightly better work. He often imposes himself so hard that the other fighter is forced into survival mode. That physical control is what Bisping kept circling back to. Chimaev has made a habit of putting opponents in bad positions and keeping them there, and once that starts happening, the fight can move away from skill for skill competition and into something far more draining. That is where Chimaev becomes especially dangerous. He does not need a lot of space to create problems, and once the fight begins moving in his direction, he can turn that momentum into long, punishing stretches that make it hard for anyone to reset. Bisping also pointed to Chimaev's decision fight with Dricus du Plessis, and he still viewed that performance in a strong light. Even though it went the distance, Bisping saw enough in that fight to believe Chimaev can still control important moments against top-level competition. That mattered to him because it showed that Chimaev's style still holds up when the other man is tough enough to survive, experienced enough to adjust, and dangerous enough to push back. Going long did not erase Chimaev's strength. In Bisping's eyes, it proved that those strengths are still there even when the fight becomes more competitive. That point matters because top-level fights are rarely clean from start to finish. Against the best opponents, everyone gets tested. Everyone has to deal with resistance. For Bisping, Chimaev showed that he can still stay effective even when the fight is not going exactly the way he would want from the opening second. He can still create control, still win important stretches, and still make life hard for elite fighters. That made Bisping view him as a very different level of challenge for Strickland. So the message from Bisping was direct. Sean Strickland earned this chance, and he deserves real credit for reaching it. Nothing about that was being dismissed. At the same time, the test ahead of him is a hard one because Khamzat Chimaev is the kind of fighter who can take away comfort very quickly. Once he starts building momentum, he does not give opponents much room to breathe, and that is what makes this matchup such a dangerous one for anyone standing across from him. Bisping's red was not built on hype alone. He was looking at how both men actually fight, what happens when they settle into their strengths, and which one is more likely to force the other out of his preferred range. Strickland's stand-up pressure and confidence are real weapons, and Bisping acknowledged all of that. Still, in his breakdown, the threat coming back the other way felt larger because Chimaev can reshape a fight in a hurry. That is why he saw the matchup as such a difficult assignment for Strickland, even while praising everything Strickland did to get there.
He's no nickname. He gets called lots of names by a lot of people because he's a controversial guy. But I tell you what, the way that he beat Alexander Fluffy Hernandez, the way that he put a beat down on him respectfully to Fluffy, the way that he finished him with that knee to the midsection, and then to be honest, how he handled himself on the microphone, right?
Fluffy's the definition of a man.
He deserves this shot. Of course, he lost the belt to Dricus du Plessis. How's he going to do against Khamzat Chimaev? I don't know about that. Khamzat Chimaev is ridiculous. What is he, 15-0? He's a
When Bisping stripped the fight down to its most important issue, he kept landing in the same place. In his view, the whole matchup turns on whether Sean Strickland can deal with Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling and non-stop pressure. That, more than anything else, is where he sees the result being shaped. Strickland is at his best when the fight stays upright long enough for him to settle in and start working. Once he finds that rhythm, he can make a fight look very uncomfortable for the other man. He keeps the jab active, keeps the pressure moving forward, and forces opponents to deal with a constant stream of work that does not always look flashy. flashy, but can be very effective over time. He does not need wild exchanges to win minutes. He needs space to box, the time to build his pace, and enough control over range to keep the fight where he wants it. That is where Chimaev changes everything. Bisping's argument was built around how quickly the picture can shift once Chimaev gets close enough to start grappling. A fight that feels manageable at striking distance can become a completely different kind of problem the moment he gets his hands connected. Once that happens, the clean boxing battle Strickland wants can disappear, and the contest turns into one about balance, takedown defense, physical control, and how well a fighter can survive or recover when the exchanges get heavy. Bisping treated that as the line running through the entire matchup. If Strickland can keep the fight standing often enough, then he gives himself a real chance to make his strength matter. His jab starts landing. His forward pressure becomes a factor, and Chimaev has to work through a stand-up battle that may not suit him as well for long stretches. That is the version of the fight Strickland needs to create. He does not have to stop every attempt forever, but he does need to stop enough of them, and he needs to make Chimaev pay for every failed entry. The problem is that Chimaev does not need many openings to start changing the direction of a fight. One successful entry can lead to a clinch. One clinch can lead to a takedown attempt, and one takedown attempt can turn into a long stretch where Strickland is no longer dictating anything. That was the heart of Bisping's concern. A fighter can be winning the fight he wants, then suddenly find himself trapped in the one he was trying to avoid. Against someone like Chimaev, that switch can happen fast. That is why Bisping framed Strickland's job in such a direct way. Stay upright as often as possible. Defend the takedowns when he can. When one does happen, get back up quickly and do not let it turn into extended control. In Bisping's eyes, every second Strickland spends getting held down or tied up is time taken away from the fight he wants to build. Every successful reset back to the feet gives him a better chance of making the striking exchanges matter. For Bisping, this was not a matchup with 10 equal questions hanging over it. He saw one main problem sitting above the rest, and that problem was whether Strickland can stop Chimaev from dragging him into another world. If the answer is yes often enough, the fight looks competitive and maybe even favorable for Strickland in key moments. If the answer is no, then Chimaev could end up running the kind of fight that has made him so dangerous throughout his rise. That is what made Bisping's breakdown feel so focused. He was not getting lost in side stories or small what-if scenarios. He kept coming back to the same point because, in his eyes, everything else flows from it. Can Strickland keep the fight where he wants it, or can Chimaev force the fight where he wants it? That single battle, repeated over and over, is the one Bisping believes could decide the whole night.
I know Imavov beat Kyle Bohaya, but when you look at it, Strickland's already beat Imavov. Yeah, it was a while ago, but a win's a win. And he just put a beat down and a stoppage on Fluffy, right? Imavov beat Kyle Bohaya by decision, and we all know this sport's about what have you done for me lately. There is a backstory between Chimaev and Sean Strickland. They have trained with one another. There's a bit of shit talk. There's going to be bad blood. We know that the lead up to the fight will be goddamn insane, right? Chimaev doesn't hold back. He talks shit, but in a kind of reserved way, but like he truly believes in himself. And Sean Strickland is just going to go on the full offensive. We know that. We know that. He's going to be talking some crazy shit. Dana even joked about it on the little show that we did there. He said they're going to need extra security for that fight, during the fight week, leading up to the fight, after the fight, in the fight. It's going to be a mad one because Sean Strickland doesn't hold back. And you know what? Even if you don't like the shit that he says, you have to appreciate the entertainment value that he brings to the table. And then on top of that, the performances inside the octagon. That one against Fluffy, that was a different show.
Bedtime MMA also focused heavily on the wrestling side of the matchup, but his read had a little more detail to it than simply saying Sean Strickland either gets taken down or does not. In his view, Strickland probably does hit the canvas at some point. That part alone was not the main story for him. What mattered more was what happens after the takedown. He pointed to Strickland's ability to fight his way back up, and he made it sound like that part of the matchup is not getting enough attention from some fans. His breakdown emphasized the smaller technical pieces that matter once the action gets messy. Strickland, in that view, does a good job dealing with grip, working the hands, rebuilding his base, and avoiding bad positions that can turn a normal takedown into a long, miserable stretch of control. Those details do not always jump off the screen right away, but against a fighter like Chimaev, they can mean everything. That is where Bedtime MMA drew an important line in the prediction. He still expects Chimaev to have real success with the wrestling. He still expects takedowns to happen, and he does not treat that part like a fantasy. What he does not see is Strickland simply getting crushed on the ground in the same way some of Chimaev's past opponents have have been overwhelmed. He thinks the fight is more competitive than that, especially in the moments after the takedown land. His version of the matchup looks more like a repeated cycle than a one-sided takeover. Chimaev gets in, forces the takedown, and starts trying to settle into control. Strickland responds by fighting the hands, working back to a stronger position and pushing his way towards standing again. Once he is back up, the whole process can begin all over. That creates a fight built around repeated wrestling exchanges rather than one long stretch where one man has full command of everything. That difference changes the feel of the matchup in a big way. If every takedown leads to long control, then the path for Chimaev looks very strong and very direct. If takedowns happen but Strickland keeps turning them into temporary setbacks instead of lasting damage, the fight becomes more complicated. Now Chimaev has to keep forcing the same kind of pressure over and over, and Strickland has to keep proving that he can survive those moments without letting them steal the entire fight from him. Bedtime MMA's Red also gives a bigger role to Strickland's toughness. In that version of the contest, toughness is not just about eating punches or staying calm under pressure on the feet. It becomes about refusing to stay controlled, refusing to let bad moments keep getting worse, and making Chimaev work for every inch of position instead of surrendering once the fight hits the mat. That is a very different picture from the idea that one takedown automatically means the round is gone. There is also a conditioning angle in a fight like that, even if it is not the only thing deciding the matchup. Repeated takedowns take energy. Repeated stand-ups take energy too. If Chimaev has to keep reapplying pressure and Strickland keeps forcing reset, then the battle becomes more demanding for both men as the fight wears on. Bedtime MMA's read of the matchup leaves room for that kind of attritional fight, where the wrestling still matters a lot, but the recovery after the wrestling matters just as much. That is why his breakdown stood out. He was not dismissing Chimaev's wrestling or pretending Strickland could just walk through it without trouble. He was saying that the story does not end the moment the takedown lands. The more important question, in his eyes, is whether Strickland can stop those takedowns from turning into long spells of total control. If he can, then the fight becomes much more competitive than a lot of people assume. In that version, every exchange carries weight. Chimaev has to prove he can keep the control once he gets it. Strickland has to prove he can keep escaping without letting the physical grind wear him down too badly. That repeated battle between control and recovery becomes one of the most important parts of the whole contest. And it is the reason Bedtime MMA sees this as a tougher wrestling matchup for Chimaev than some people are making it out to be.
A lot of other middleweights don't, right? Because Khamzat doesn't have to get perfect setups to take you down. He has that BJJ threat that allows him to rack up control time. But Sean Strickland is very high level in his ability to break the grips, to fight the hands, to get back up to his knees, then to his feet without giving up his back too much, without putting his neck out there and getting submitted. Because that's the real danger with a guy like Khamzat Chimaev, right? You fucking wrestle up the wrong way, you're ending up on BJJ Fanatics, dog. You wrestle up the wrong way. You put your head out there. What's up, guys? Today we're going to break down how Khamzat Chimaev got the finish. That you're going on IG Reels, bro. You know what I mean, dude? Jack Slack's making a 30-minute video about how you got rear naked choked, dog. But Khamzat Chimaev is so good at just controlling people because of that threat. And that's what makes this difficult. Is Sean Strickland, if you give up your back as him, you're going to spend all round on bottom getting beat up, threatened with subs, and
when all the different breakdowns are reduced to the main issue, this fight still comes back to one battle more than any other. Sean Strickland needs to resist the takedowns often enough, escape bad spots fast enough, and keep enough of the action on the feet for his striking to matter. Khamzat Chimaev needs to keep pressing, keep closing distance, and turn those moments of contact into the kind of wrestling fight that can take over the night. That is why the opinions around this matchup have split so sharply. Strickland has the kind of stand-up pressure that can frustrate opponents, break their rhythm, and slowly pull rounds in his direction. Chimaev has the kind of grappling threat that can wipe out a striking game plan the moment he gets close enough to impose himself. Those strengths do not just exist side by side in this matchup. They run straight into each other, and that collision is what has made the fight so interesting from the start. The real appeal is not only that both men are well known, it is the way their best weapons challenge each other directly. Strickland wants room to work, room to pressure, and room to box at his own pace. Chimaev wants to remove that room, create contact, and force a physical fight the first chance he gets. The man who succeeds in setting that environment may end up deciding far more than a single exchange here or there. This is what makes the matchup feel so tense even before it happens. You can clearly see the route to victory for both sides. If Strickland stays upright, keeps the jab pumping, and forces Chimaev to spend long stretches dealing with straight shots and constant pressure, the fight can begin leaning his way. If Chimaev gets hold of him, slows the striking down, and starts building control through wrestling exchanges, the whole shape of the contest can change in a hurry. Neither path feels impossible, and that is why people keep going back and forth forth on who takes it. A lot of fights get attention because of trash talk, rankings, or the names involved. This one has something stronger than that. It has a built-in clash that fans understand right away. One fighter wants to build a disciplined stand-up battle. The other wants to drag the fight into heavy contact and make it a grind. Whoever gets more of the fight they want will probably be the one with the better chance of having their hand raised. That is also why each small moment feels like it matters so much here. A defended takedown could change a round. A failed stand-up could change a round. A few clean jabs at the right time could shift momentum. A clinch entry at the right time could do the same in the opposite direction. In a matchup this tightly framed around style, the details do not feel small at all. They feel like the whole story. Now it is your turn to weigh in on it. Tell us who you think wins and tell us what part of the fight decides it. Because with a matchup like this, everyone has a different read on which side of the clash holds up better when the cage door closes. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay locked in for more MMA content, because this fight is only going to get bigger from here, and the debate is not slowing down anytime soon. Before you go, subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next upload.